generative AI and its ability to democratize access to your data. What does that actually mean? Because that's also buzzwords get thrown around a lot. It's the idea that it's not just a chatbot. It is able to reason, look at data, and also make inferences and come back and look for anomaly detection.
Hello and welcome everyone to a brand new episode of the Auto Tech Show. My name is Mark Babin, your host, and as always, thank you very much for joining me on another insightful episode of the show. Now today we're diving into the world of fleet management and fleet operations to look at how AI tech and recent advancements are creating groundbreaking opportunities for the industry in terms of efficiency, transparency, and strategic decision making. And as all of our listeners will know by now, we cannot do this alone. It's a complex topic. And it is on that note, I'm excited to bring in the one and only Amir Sayegh, Ph.D. He's a self-proclaimed serial dabbler and manages data product discovery over at Geotab, a global leader in connected transportation solutions that utilizes AI dashboards and insights fed from various data sources in fleet operations. Amir, first and foremost, thank you so much for your time today. I know you have a lot going on over at Geotab, and I'm really looking forward to your insights. I know this is an area that you have a lot of passion around. But yeah, first and foremost, thank you so much for being with me.
Hey, Mark, thank you. And thank you to your audience for taking the time to listen to this discussion today. Yeah,
I think it's going to be a fascinating one. And in our pre-conversations, it was almost like we were recording episodes on our own. We just get into it, and I love how your passion comes across so seamlessly there. So I am really looking forward to this talk, and I think it's one that needs to happen, especially right now. And so on that point, I'd like to start today by taking a little bit of a step back and to look at, from your perspective, obviously AI technology has transformed fleet operations, a very traditional side of the automotive sector. First thing that comes to mind, obviously, in my mind, the general operation practices, efficiency sides. So that's what comes to mind for me. But when we look at how AI technology is transforming fleet, are there other areas that maybe you are a bit more excited about, given how deep you're involved with it?
Totally. So let me give you a little bit of a background about Geotab. Not a commercial here or anything like that. I'm not commissioned, but so the headline is we have been in the commercial transportation space for more than 23 plus years. And we build hardware, software that allows you to extract data and connected data from your vehicles as a fleet. So we have been a big data company for 23 years. If that makes sense. We've been specifically focused on AI for the past 6 or 7. And when I say AI here, we're talking about classical, using air quotes here, like machine learning and all that good stuff. So in the past year, we've seen this rise of generative AI, and we'll get into that during the chat today. So if you ask me what I'm most excited about, generative AI, democratization of access to data. But it's important as well to acknowledge the headwinds that the industry is facing at the moment. There's a lot of, I'll call it pressures, like through the fallout of the pandemic and supply chain disruptions, we're seeing that vehicle ages are having to go up. People are holding onto their vehicle, and that's obviously compounded by rising interest rates and all that. So people are holding on to vehicles much longer, and we see that in our data. So we've looked at that. There's also that drive to reduce costs, reduce fuel consumption, to be safer. And, you see in the trucking industry, there's nuclear verdicts out there. So how do you become safer so that you can actually stay in business in some cases? And then finally, this move toward decarbonization of the fleet, whether it's through electrification or other means, reducing fuel consumption, reducing idling. So I strongly believe that AI can make that possible. And just to keep it really tangible and real for your viewers, subscribers, friends, we'll keep it simple today. So there's 2 parts. One is, in the case of Geotab, we have 4 million connected vehicles at the moment. We just celebrated that a few months ago. And so by looking at the movement of all these vehicles going around, we can apply benchmarking techniques which rely on AI. So I can tell you, we invariably hear the following, Mark. okay, I installed my Geotab device. I got my fuel readings. Is that good or bad? And the answer is invariably, I don't know. The reason for that is there's no standard in the industry. So what do? Instead of going to like conferences and looking up people for coffee chats and exchanging best practices, we take a data-driven approach to say, well, you are over-indexing on fuel consumption. You are probably able to reduce that fuel consumption. And the second aspect of AI, and benchmarking can be a big theme here, is this new paradigm shift. And I don't use that word lightly, but generative AI and its ability to democratize access to your data. What does that actually mean? Because that's also buzzwords get thrown around a lot. It's the idea that it's not just a chatbot. It is able to reason, look at data, and also make inferences and come back and look for anomaly detection. So it's, Microsoft talked about sparks of general intelligence. It's good enough at the moment, so let's not get into the academics of whether it is general intelligence or not. It is good enough to do these sort of tasks and look into data for anomaly while respecting privacy and security and putting guardrails on the technology.
I like that you're diving right into the use cases of data, because I do want to go there. Something that I do want to jump back to is you mentioned that these pressures that are driving this change, and you mentioned a few of the environmental factors. Is it strictly environmental factors driving this shift, or is it users and drivers and fleet operators themselves that are saying, hey, we need to change? Is it a mixture of both? How do you see it based on the data that you're getting?
I think over the years, maturity is going up in the industry as a result of competition and companies like Geotab pushing for what we call our data intelligence and actionable insights and all that. So we're starting to see that demand shift towards like, I need the data in order to better run my fleet. So we're seeing both the environmental factors and the intrinsic factors as well.
Yeah, I say that's an interesting way to put it, the maturing of the industry, because it's a forced maturing. If it's a
Totally.
Do it or get left behind type of situations. And it's nice to see, after many years of this challenge coming up, people finally taking action against it. I think people were talking about it for many, many years. And what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? But now we're seeing a lot of those first steps, second steps take place because of solutions that are coming available.
Totally.
Do you feel like the people that you're working with are fully committed, that they have that cultural aspect now to want to shift and generate into that data-driven approach?
That's my perception. I think it's more of a function of the how. People get lost on the, we have to do big data. I'm using big data here intentionally, so that's from like 10 years ago. Now they want to do AI. Okay, I want to do AI, but I don't know where to start. And so it's a little bit overwhelming. And so we always advise people to think big, start small, start now. There's power in small data. Make sure you're set up to collect the data at least. And it's a marathon, not a sprint, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the different, there's a lot of data capture points when we look within fleet operations, and that's maybe new to a lot of people. So that can be overwhelming, but even more so and exponentially so is the way that data can be used. And obviously that's what you were referring to a little bit earlier on. So when we look at these AI solutions and obviously the many, many tools that are coming out on the market specifically for fleet, how do you feel like operators should respond with what their main goals should be, their objectives, the expectations they should have? What is kind of, you talk about those first steps. Where do they go?
So I think you have to kind of start by doing two things. And it's kind of, if I had a visual here, I would draw it for you, but you want a top down and a bottom up approach. So what does that mean? Top down approach is, what are my key business problems? So let's make it practical for the audience here. I'm a fleet owner. Here are all my costs. I pay so much on maintenance. I pay so much on, insurance. I pay so much for fuel and so on and so forth. Okay, good. You kind of know where your problems are. Then I should look at the data I have access to and the talent that has access to that data. So what can I practically do with what I have now? And the answer might be, well, I have an intern working in Excel. Okay, good. Let's start with that. But there's some data we can use. And then you want to find that intersection, again, I wish I had a visual for you, of maximum bang for buck with minimal time investment to show wins. And I'll give you a perfect example here. So I'm a very big fan of safety, a big safety advocate. We do a lot of work on the safety, and we can get into that. But when you look at something like fuel consumption, I can show you fuel consumption ROI or savings by the next time you go to the pump. So if I just sat next to you, forget about commercial transportation for a second. If I just sat next to you, and while you're driving, it's like, hey, Mark, you're cornering a little bit too hard. You're accelerating too hard. You're just pushing the car a little bit, and it's not in its optimal zone. Mm-hmm. Hey, how about you move your seat back by an inch? Next fuel bill, you're saving 10%, right? Whereas safety, it's more of a longitudinal thing. It'll take a good year or 6 months to see that I did the safety, I took the safety insights, I acted upon them, and the interventions here sometimes are not simple. They're programmatic in some cases, coaching, driver, training, all that good stuff. And then you see the long-term reduction in collisions and all that. And sometimes collisions happen anyway. So it's important when you have that mindset of like, what is the horizon of ROI for the telematics investments I'm doing? And we talk about data intelligence here. I want to generalize it here for a second for the audience. So think about insights leading to action, and then that action leading to the ROI, and then giving feedback to the AI so that the AI can give you better recommendations next time. Because if I tell you that, oh, you have, I don't know, I'll give you a bad example because that's my specialty. Like you have gold in your backyard and you don't go and dig for it, might as well do, then you didn't realize the ROI, right? So just wanted to level set on what we mean when we say data intelligence, the whole framework of insights to actions to ROI.
Is it, so we talked, like you mentioned the short-term and the long-term benefits there. If operators are setting expectations for themselves and they're getting into this, are the expectations that there are some short wins, but in general, it's a long-term play?
Yes, but the ROI is 1,000x. Right. Because your telematics investment or your data collection investment, let's not even talk about data investment, a data collection investment in and of itself is not as expensive or it's orders of magnitude less than the return you get on doing this.
And that's rather immediate then.
That it well, it's important to set that expectation. Sure. What is short term, what is long term, and understanding. But you can reap the benefits very quickly if you look for what Deloitte calls the crunchy problems. Immediate impact, data is available, you go and you do it, right? Bias for action.
Is that gap being shortened by the number of companies that you've seen when they come to you versus after they've been working for you for a while? Do you see that gap shortening between what they're not using and then suddenly what they're able to collect from it and use from it?
I don't have data to support that. So I think my perception is yes. And we have seen insights that people who use our safety products look like they are safer fleets, but I can't tell you if it has shortened over time.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can only assume over time that bell curve is going to go in the right direction and that line is going to move in the right direction. But yeah, again, to see companies taking that step, that first, second step, and we're seeing a lot of these conversations happen at shows, at summits around the world. The right conversations are happening, and that's showing a progressive shift in the industry. Now, the one word that comes to mind, especially when we look at, using data and getting AI involved, is transparency. And I love the word when it comes to how people use data, because it opens up lines of communications. It opens doors that perhaps didn't exist before. Are there challenges or considerations that people need to address and that operators need to address when implementing AI, thinking of transparency here?
Yeah, so traditionally the emphasis was privacy, security, understanding, like you have to stay within the boundaries of the law and the ethical standards, right? So in this case, if you're a fleet owner, you have to understand the handling of different data sets that you have, whether it's biometrics, whether it's camera, whether it's employment contracts, and so on and so forth. Where the world is shifting to generative AI is ushering in the age of agents. And agents are going out there and doing things on your behalf. And if you're not careful, you will lose sight of why it's doing this. You're losing that human agency almost. And I use that interchangeably with transparency. So the idea here is very much like there are laws that say, well, you can't issue an AI-driven credit score for someone without being able to explain it. Mm-hmm. The explainability and the transparency of your AI system is paramount in the sense that, okay, the AI says Mark is a bad driver. Sorry, Mark, I'm picking on you, but okay, well, why? Well, he didn't wear his seatbelt. Well, why didn't he wear his seatbelt? Well, he was just driving to pick up the mail 50 yards away, right? So is it dangerous? Yes, but put in context, and that's context is everything. Mm-hmm. It's not safe driving, but it's not unsafe driving, if that makes sense. Maybe I used a bad example again, as I mentioned. That's my
going down your driveway versus perhaps going on a public road.
Totally. And then it needs to tell you how it reasoned through these decisions. Like, okay, I saw Mark driving without a seatbelt. Okay, but you only saw him once out of 1,000, once out of 1,000,000. Okay, and then what did you do? Well, I called this engine here that analyzes safety. Okay, and then what did you do? Well, then I issued a report. Okay, and then what did you do? Then I issued this training for Mark, right? So Mark needs to know, why did I get... It's not enough to say, well, Mark, you get a text message, okay, you got training module. What? No, because you didn't wear your seatbelt on this given day, right? So that human agency is really important in terms of transparency of how the AI systems behave the way they did. There's other much more complex considerations like bias of models and all that, but that's probably beyond the scope of this chat today. But there's a huge, the whole AI unlock here that's happening with generative AI cannot happen without transparency.
Do you feel like there's a loss, a fear of losing that human agency side when we get more into this AI capabilities? And as you mentioned, it's just iterative over iterative. Is it a fear that human side gets lost?
I think a lot of companies are thinking about this the right way, which is mm-hmm. augmented intelligence and the co-pilot approach as touted by Microsoft, as mm-hmm. opposed to, I'm going to use AI for labor reduction or for automated decision making. And I suspect that legislation is going to intervene as well. So I have not seen that. The technology, while very promising and still continuing to live up to its hype, is still not good enough to do that. So it's a really good co-pilot system at the moment.
And that's probably where it's most efficient, because there are elements of the job up and down an organization within fleet that you need that human touch to do interaction of some kind. And
totally.
And having the AI sort of as a third eye, as that extra set of hands, can make that one person as efficient as 2.5, which in the staff shortage we're in totally. Is monumental.
Totally. And if you're like using AI to analyze handwritten maintenance records, well, if you don't fill out the logbook, mm-hmm. what good is AI, right? Mm-hmm. So there's still that compliance piece. There's still that piece of like doing what you have to do, and then the AI engine comes in and helps.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of it is useful. But what's really interesting to me, especially with AI and generative AI, is the insights side, especially mm-hmm. the insights of what you and Geotab are doing. So specifically, without getting too much into details, don't lose me in the first sentence. I know you're capable of it. Try to hang on to me. When we look at AI and generative AI, how do they further enhance and further empower those who are making the decisions within fleet?
I'll give you a couple of one-liners. How about that, Mark?
Brilliant, and I'll pick one. Go for it.
Safety, benchmarking using AI. I can tell you whether you are safer than cohorts that look like you or unsafe. Mm-hmm. The same can be said for fuel. Proactive maintenance, so saying that, hey, your vehicle really needs to change its battery now, otherwise that outage will cost you this many days of work. In fact, there might be a world where, another one-liner here, where you wake up in the morning, you get a text message saying, by the way, we towed your car to the dealer, changed the battery, returned it, and that happened through your AI agent system talking to the dealer's AI agent. Again, I'm talking the consumer realm here. Mm-hmm. And then for generative AI, we're talking about two aspects. One is the internal efficiency unlock, which I can use these technologies to augment human intelligence and deliver a lot of productivity and efficiency enhancements all while being managed responsibly. And the second part is democratizing access to data. So there's the classical AI, if that makes sense, or machine learning, and now there's the generative AI, and they all lead to unlocks for the fleet owner.
Is that fairly, as far as barriers to understanding and barriers to using the full capacity of it for decision makers, is it easy enough that it's kind of pick up and go, or is there a learning curve? Does it take time, like for the actual people making the decisions up in the corporate offices?
Well, let's talk about the classical AI. The classical AI actually, if it works properly, and again, not a commercial plug here, but if you have a vendor who's providing you with insights based on AI, just like Shazam will detect a song, all I care about is what's that song playing? Am I safe or not? So it's one number. It's anticlimactic. I don't have to know machine learning. You don't have to know anything. You just have to know, structure your business so you can use that those insights immediately and be structured that way, right? So that's kind of like how I would think about it.
Okay, so it's not an overwhelming jump for those that maybe aren't into it yet, or are looking at getting it, but maybe don't want to take that step because they're afraid this is going to change how my whole day looks. But yes, maybe it will, but for the better.
Totally. Now, one caveat though for generative AI, the using it is easy because it's chat based. Building a process around embedding into your business processes is a little bit harder. And then setting policies for what you can and can't, or what you should and shouldn't with the chatbot is another level of the game kind of thing, because this is a very weird paradigm here where you have to use the technology, but you have to use it responsibly, if that makes sense, right? Because you don't want to be feeding your corporate secrets into an AI that's trained on it so that then your competitor gets access to the same AI, gets all the insights inferred from your data. But then again, you're getting 15 to 30% productivity unlock. So there's a little bit of both. And we, another shameless plug here, we have our Geotab Connect event next month. So that's our customer event, and we'll be making some interesting Gen AI announcements and how we tackle the privacy aspect of all of this as well.
When you mentioned the importance of the integration, can you touch on that as well a little bit more? So obviously to get the system, and especially with generative AI, working the most efficient and working for you, obviously there's a bit of work that has to go into getting things plugged in correctly.
Totally.
The importance of working with someone, say like yourselves or organizations similar that specialize in areas like this, is that a key step to success? I mean, obviously we want that, but a company isn't going to, like a fleet operation isn't going to have that department, isn't going to have that office of, professionals that are on this case. They do what they do and they're the best at what they do. How important is it to work with people that live and breathe this integration life?
Yeah, so I would go down one level, which is integration means, to me, systems talking to each other. But there's also cases when the integration is manual, in the sense that somebody goes in, looks at a safety report, figures out that based on the AI, underlying AI in the engine, says, these are the actions you need to take. Go take the actions. Go talk to someone. Go administer that training program. It will pay off. So the whole, and then you kind of earned your way to say, well, hey, if I could get the training system to talk to the safety system, I could save one person's time and I can get my outcomes at scale. But you have to do it. So it's almost like you have to focus on your people and process more so than the technology. Technology is almost secondary to it, right? Because if otherwise you're buying it, you're not using it, then what's the point?
Yeah, and it comes back to using it as an aid rather than using it to replace again, I guess. It's really there to help instruct and make people more efficient at the end of the day.
Totally. Human judgment, empathy, social interaction. Culture eats strategy for breakfast at the end of the day.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually. So obviously you mentioned you have an event coming up where you're going to announce some stuff, and I'm not going to go there. I know how special that is. Are there elements to AI and Gen AI that you're particularly excited about, and how it's going to even help evolve the industry further?
Yeah, so AI for predictive analytics,
Mm-hmm.
so it's been there for a while and growing into that. Generative AI, we've actually released a POC, a beta POC called Project G, where we were experimenting with technology while maintaining customer privacy and all that good stuff. But where Gen AI is getting interesting is twofold. One is this agents-based approach. So your models are able to do tasks for you, and we see a lot of open source initiatives around that, and even like Microsoft and Google announcements around these kind of technologies. So an agent-based world, and what we call multimodal models, meaning that they can look at pictures and they can look at videos and they can do a lot of interesting things. They can synthesize pictures, they can synthesize videos. So I'm going to oversell the audience here, forgive me, but imagine a day when you have data, collected data about your vehicle got into a collision, and somehow I can reconstruct a 3D reconstruction of the collision as a video that I can use to understand what went wrong that day. Was it the angle of the sun, right? Was it the other vehicle? Was I speeding? What happened, right?
That's incredible.
So
It has massive implication as well.
totally. And this isn't exactly science fiction. This
Yeah,
is 12 to 24 months away.
that's crazy. And I guess the speed at which it evolves, like in the past, an idea would take a decade to bring to life, but now because
Totally.
of AI and Gen AI, it's even faster to evolve these ideas. It's kind of it's aiding itself in its development.
Totally. Like this is as big, in my humble opinion, as the internet, mobile technology, cloud technology, all rolled into one, multiplied by 100. The reason that for that being that AI is now going to drive advancements in AI,
That's
right?
so
So you're going
crazy.
to get that exponential growth that's going to be incomprehensible to us as humans.
Yeah, I think it's already there for me. AI driving AI. That's fantastic.
That's right.
Oh, there's a thought to finish the episode on. Wonderful. Amazing, amazing insights. And I think it really, for those in the industry that are looking at this type of thing and looking to bring it into their organization, especially from a data and an understanding of a data point of view, I think it's massive. And you touched on a lot of great points. So I definitely want those listening to take a lot of this to heart and to really start thinking about it practically, because I think there's a lot of immediate action that can take place. We talked about a lot of short-term gains as well here. But it's fantastic. Amir, thank you so much. Before we wrap, any final notes from your point of view?
No, I'll just say it again. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So make sure you build the org structure and the process so that you can adopt these new technologies, and always be curious.
It always starts from the ground up. And I guess if everyone's drinking
That's
the
right.
same juice, then you're going to go a lot farther,
That's
a lot
right.
faster.
Totally.
Perfect. Amir, thank you so much again. I really appreciate the time today and these insights. I really hope those listening take action. But yeah, wishing you a fantastic rest of the year. Good luck at the event coming up, and look
Thank
forward
you,
to
Mark.
connecting with you very soon.
Same to you and same to your audience. Thank you for taking the time today.
Absolutely. Thanks very much.
All right.
And to everyone watching and listening, thank you very much for being with me on this episode. I've got pages of notes. I'm sure you do as well. A lot of areas to explore when we talk about AI and Gen AI and the fleet space. There's a lot more discussion to be had. This was just the tip of the iceberg, but hopefully it's enough to get you thinking and to start having those conversations in the office. So with that, we'll bring this episode to a close. If you have any questions about what you heard today, please check out the notes of this podcast. You'll see links to both Amir and my LinkedIn. Reach out, ask a question, keep the conversation going. We love having that with you. All right. So with that, wishing you all a fantastic day in the world, wherever you may be. We'll see you on the next podcast very soon. Bye for now.